I look at De Groot, it's given them a weapon they probably haven't had for a long time.
We talk about form in Super Rugby. Are these two the form props in Super Rugby, and will they be the starters for the All Blacks? Does it simply translate to the international game?
It's not my week for form 15, Kirsty. I'm going to stay out of
there,
Kirsty. I'm just going to back right out of that.
Well, we look forward to seeing your form 15 in the next 10 or so. But Ethan de Groot, great news about him. He's bucked the trend. He's not going overseas next year. He is re-signed with New Zealand Rugby until 2026. So he'll be with Southland, which you'll be stoked about for the Stags, the Highlanders and New Zealand Rugby.
Let's be honest, Southland probably won't see him.
Yeah.
But it's actually a message of the fact you can come from anywhere in New Zealand and you've got that opportunity to possibly become an All Black. And he's gone through the ranks. He's a proud Highlander. It's great for Southland. But it's great news. Considering
everyone that we're losing next year, right?
We've got a lot of players on the move, Batesy, lost. We've got a lot of guys, and particularly guys who have still got plenty of really good rugby heading overseas. And to me, it is a concern when we are losing some of these guys. There's some of the names that we're talking about who could clearly still have an impact, the likes of a Brad Weber, Aaron Smith. If you actually go through all of the Super Rugby sides, they're losing some of their superstars. They're actually premier players. Good chance Beauden Barrett's going to head away. Chance of Rico Ioane. Out of the Hurricanes, Adi Savea not in Super Rugby next year. It's going to be a vastly different picture next season, Batesy.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I suppose we always talk about it, about the depth in New Zealand, and it's going to be tested next year. And I believe personally that it's already being tested this year. If you look at probably the depth that is, and I've got to be careful what I say, but probably the depth is coming through when we get a couple of injuries for our top line players, when we rest people from All Black from All Black time. What's happening is, you've got to remember, there's people going to the MLR as well, which has taken our depth away. So all of a sudden, the depth around that is really stretching us. We've got a new team, Moana, who's taken a lot of guys from the New Zealand depth charts as well. So the depth in New Zealand rugby at the moment is being stretched, and that will go further next year.
So if you take all these stars out of the competition, you talk about taking them out for 1 week for an All Blacks rest week, but if you take them out permanently, is Super Rugby in trouble without all these big names?
Oh, of course it is, you know, and the public want to see those big names. You know, that's what puts bums on seats. You know, they want to see the best players in New Zealand playing week in, week out. You know, you're not going to pay whatever it is, okay, to watch second, third strings. You want to see your top players playing week in, week out.
So this is going to be a challenge, right? And understand it. Clearly the marketplace is demanding it right now, and the contracts that are being offered in Japan clearly, and creating sabbatical opportunities, and we're supporting players not just to play there but to come back and play in New Zealand. This is something I know New Zealand Rugby is going to have to consider and deal with. And you know, I'm hopeful next week on this show, we're going to get some answers from New Zealand Rugby about exactly where the investment is being made in our future. I mean, how are we possibly going to keep these players in the game? Because Richie Mo'unga's another one that has been lost for 3 years. And if you don't have that competition and layer at Super Rugby, Batesy, how do you prepare players to play international rugby? And there's guys like Tom Robinson, Alex Nankivell as well. These are that tier you're talking about, just in below, who create some depth and internal competition in sides.
And then there's competitions all over the world pulling in different places and different levels of player, that's for sure. I suppose the one thing that they've done a little bit is NZR recently is they sent an A-team away, and then again an A-team's going to Japan just before MPC kicks out. So that's developing people in that space too. So that's an avenue they've looked at. But I do agree with you. It's a big drain on our resource at the moment.
What if I throw this at you? Is it time, the eligibility laws, we keep hard and fast. We know what they've done in Australia. There's some guys that if they've played 70, 80 test matches, who deserve the opportunity, Batesy, lost. I mean, to be selected if we need them in a critical test match?
Yeah, we're opening up a can of worms. We are in that. Yeah,
it's called a grenade. I'd like to throw it out there and see what happens.
Yeah, but I would have no... I know they call it the Gitto law in Australia. I would have no issues with that. Personally, I think they've got, I think it's up to 3. I'd have no issues with having it with 5 in New Zealand, you know. And you know, as a player, if you jump over there, yep, there's a chance you won't be selected, because if you're a 95% player and we have a 92% player here in New Zealand, you're going to miss out. Yep. So you run that risk, you know what I mean? That's what it is, and you've got to make that decision. But for me personally, I just think the the draw overseas from the French for the props, from the Japanese for everyone. You know, it's so big that we need to look at other ways to sort of do things. I don't think we throw the floodgates wide open, but I think we do open them a little bit. But hey, I suppose there's other conversations that I might not be aware of that fit into that category.
You're nodding, Carlos. Do you agree?
I do agree. I do agree. And like you said, Goldie, it's what is it? Is it 60, 70 tests before you can
That's
actually...
a lot of tests.
But, you know, what would... I think the luxury of being able to call on one of those experienced players, especially if it's a key player, especially around our playmakers, a 9 or a 10, it could be even a front row. You know, when we lose a key player in that area and we don't have anyone to back them up, it'd be nice to actually go overseas and grab one of those back, you know.
Just say on that as well, so we've obviously seen plenty of people from Argentina, from England, to come over to here and get experience. You've got to remember, we're not the holders of rugby. We don't know everything about rugby, you know what I mean? So why can't and I'll just use him as an example, just the name that comes to my head, why can't a Bowden Barrett go over to Ireland for a season? Imagine what he'd learn. We don't know everything in this country, you know what I mean? So it goes both ways. We can get some intel from over there as well.
The problem is he won't get a rest over there, though.
Play every game.
It'll be tougher.
It won't be written into